is Hartford Whaler Nation.
Hello and welcome to Whaler Nation TV. Got a little bit of a different show for you tonight. I'm riding the show solo. Jerry Irwin's on assignment this week, so we thought we'd talk a little bit about what's going on with Hartford hockey. There's plenty. Of course, we've got another AHL season coming up. The Hartford Wolfpack will start their opener on October 5th. Today is August 19th, so we're still going through the summer months. So hockey has been a little bit slow in hearing some news, but right now we currently don't know of any other NHL possibilities for the Hartford area, you always will have the AHL in Hartford, probably no matter what. But there's still plenty of Whaler fans that are looking for the day that the NHL will recall and return to Hartford. So, saying that, I wanted to take a few minutes to tell you about something else that's going on. Justin Dineen is a nephew of former Whaler Kevin Dineen. He is in the Little League World Series. He's playing for Canada. So if you happen to notice Justin Dineen, there's a Hartford connection there for you. The other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about tonight was the Hartford 400 Club. It's something that I've come up with, and it's basically looking at all of the players that played for Hartford and played at least 400 games for Hartford. So in other words, for whichever it was, for the New England Whalers, the Hartford Whalers, or even the Connecticut, the Rangers AHL team, because we do have some players that had some pretty long careers in Hartford, even though they were in the minor leagues. Altogether, to get 400 games in for one team, you have to play, roughly about 5 seasons. So, that doesn't really happen that often, and especially with the Whalers and only having 17 seasons. There was only 12 players that got over 400 games. So, going into that, the first and highest games played in Hartford was Ron Francis, who you all know is the city's premier hockey player. Ron Francis played in 714 games for the Whalers. He did that over 10 years. You could say that he is the Babe Ruth of Hartford hockey, as Babe Ruth hit 714 home runs for baseball, and Ron Francis 714 games for Hartford. Unfortunately, he was traded away to Pittsburgh, where he was fortunate enough to win a cup with Mario Lemieux, and win another one too in 91 and 92. There was a point there when Francis had a chance maybe to be traded back to Hartford. There was a deal going on late in the 90s where he might have ended up back in Hartford, and that number, 714 games, may have been even higher. But as it was, 714 is the number for Ron Francis, and he's number 1 in the Hartford Hockey 400 Club. The second player we have is someone who's still here today. He is Ken Janander. He is the current coach of the Hartford Wolfpack. He has been coaching for the Wolfpack since 2006 and has been the head coach for a few seasons now. But prior to that, he was captain of the Hartford Wolfpack, and he won a Calder Cup in Hartford in the year 2000. And throughout his career, where he started in Binghamton before the team moved to Hartford, but in Hartford he's played 599 games for the Wolfpack, and he's number 2 on the Hartford 400 list. Ken Janander, as I said, is still here. He has actually been here in Hartford for 17 seasons, either as a player or as a coach, which is the longest tenure of any player in Hartford history. So it's pretty amazing. And like I said, he's still here, so we don't know how much longer he's going to be here. But yeah, he's a really nice guy, and he's a good coach, and he develops players for the Rangers quite well. So number 2 on the list is Ken Janander, who wore number 12, and his number is retired and the Civic Center rafters, just as sure as Francis is, who was number 1 on the list. His number was number 10, but those numbers are hanging in the rafters. Now, number 3 on the list is a guy that comes up to be number 1 in most fans' hearts. It's Kevin Dineen. You've heard Jeff Jacobs from the Hartford Courant call him John Wayne on skates. The guy that would just go around Larry Robinson and score that game in overtime against Patrick Waugh in the playoffs. Probably Hartford's most exciting player, at least from a goal standpoint. He could, score those big goals. A scrappy player, very scrappy. Wasn't afraid of anybody. I was watching a YouTube clip of him the other day where he went after Neely. He just was one of those guys. And as you know, we've seen him in Hartford plenty of times. He actually has coached the Portland Pirates, and he came back to Hartford, and on January 6, 2006, they actually had a little ceremony for him, Francis and Ulf Samuelsson, where they hoisted their jerseys to the rafters. And Dineen also is right now currently the coach of the Florida Panthers, and he's in his 3rd season. So, Dineen is one of those very, very effective staples of Hartford hockey. You'll never forget that he was the guy with the microphone in the team's final game, where he, explained what it meant to him to play in Hartford and what it meant for the players to play in Hartford. And, on that day, Dineen was kind of the captain that led the Whalers out of town, but, never really left forever, as, he's returned so many times. Number 4 on the list is a guy who's probably not as well known, but he's a defenseman, worn number 6, and his name is Adam Burt. And he played 499 games for the Whalers, just 1 game short. He was with the Whalers when they moved to Carolina, so he missed getting that 500th game as a Whaler by 1 game, which was kind of sad. But as a person, Adam Burt was a heck of a guy. I can remember when I was younger, I actually got locker room passes, and I went down to see the Whalers locker room, and it was a little intimidating because got these superstar players, and you don't know how they're going to act to you approaching them to ask them for autograph or ask them questions. But I remember going up to Adam Burt where he had his head in his locker and he was getting everything situated after the game, and I said to him, Mr. Burt, can I ask you a question? And his response to me was no. And then he said, call me Adam. And so they knew right there that it was a pretty nice guy. He was very down to earth, and he's a really nice guy. And he's actually, on Facebook, you could see him, he is the chaplain for the New York Jets. So he's a minister. And, he was one of those defensemen that was just a stay-at-home defenseman. He was a, tough defenseman. Wasn't exactly lighting the lamp all the time, but, got his job done. And, 499 games is quite a handful to play with one team. So, Adam Burt at 499 games is number 4 on the list. And next on the list, we have Dave Tippett. Tippett wore number 15, and he actually played 483 games for the Hartford Whalers. So he, another guy who's well over the 400 mark. Dave Tippett was one of those two-way centermen, so you could rely on him for defense or offense. And he had the assistant captain, and you could tell, from his career early on that he was going to go on to do big things in hockey, and he has. He coached the Dallas Stars for many years, head coach. He's currently the head coach of the Phoenix Coyotes, and his goalie coach is Sean Burke. If you remember, Sean Burke was a longtime Whaler goaltender, but currently is coaching the Phoenix Coyotes. He's a pretty well-known coach, and from what you've heard from in stories when Francis and Dean, all those guys were younger, they said that they knew that Dave Tippett was going to be a coach one day, just by the way that he just watched that much film, he studied everything, and so he just has the knack for it. So 483 games for Dave Tippett. He wore number 15. Was well known throughout Hartford. He was one of the mustache guys. There was a couple of mustache guys. Dave Tippett was a mustache guy. Joe Quinville, the big mustache guys. So at 483 games, that's pretty impressive for Dave Tippett. And next on the list we have Ulf Samuelsson, who wore number 5. Was traded with Ron Francis in 1991, and I would have to say that I think Ulf Samuelsson is probably the team's most famous defensemen. There's so many times when you've seen Samuelsson get involved in so many scraps. As you know, he's responsible probably for ending Neely's career in a check that bothered Neely's hip. Samuelsson was just one of those players, a Swedish-born player, but it wasn't all about finesse with him. He was as rugged as they come. Samuelsson has had a long, illustrious career in the NHL. Played for many teams. Won those cups with Francis and Lemieux in 91, 92. A big part of Hartford hockey. And on January 6, 2006, the night that Deneen and Francis were honored, he was honored as well, as Ulf Samuelsson was the assistant coach of the Hartford Wolfpack in 2006. So, not only was he a player in Hartford, but he also assisted Coach Janander in coaching the team. Samuelsson, right now is currently a assistant coach with the New York Rangers, so he's still in that New York Ranger organization. Prior to that, he did do some coaching in Phoenix. He has another coaching career out of these Hartford guys that have over 400 games. Samuelsson had 463 games as a Whaler, so he's definitely in the club of over 400. Samuelsson has a son that was just drafted. I'm trying to remember now the team, and I can't recall what team it was. But Samuelsson has a son that's going to be playing in the NHL, and you never know. He could end up back in Hartford someday too. It would be great to see Samuelsson end up coaching a head coach job maybe one day. But we'll just have to wait and see about that. The other player we have here now is Joel Quenneville, who has 457 games played for the Hartford Whalers. He actually wore number 3 and was another guy with a big mustache. But anyway, he was a great defenseman and had a lot of pull, a lot of veteran leadership. It was on those '80s teams that kind of the Whalers got going a little bit. They had that veteran leadership with Tippett and Quenneville and Samuelsson and Francis. Those guys were the core, and that's why they're on this list too. They were together for quite a few seasons. Quenneville currently is the coach of the Chicago Blackhawks. Prior to that, he was the coach of the St. Louis Blues. As a Chicago Blackhawk coach, you know that he won the Cup in 2010, and he just won the Cup this past year. When he first won the Cup, he actually brought it to Hartford. He was at the Fan Fest a couple of years ago. It was 2010. I got to speak to him. Very nice guy, open, easy to talk to, and right now he's one of the best coaches in the league. Winning 2 cups in Chicago, a place that had a long drought. He's pretty popular there too. But it's really good to see that he still comes back to Hartford and will visit and spend some time here. It's another reason why he's in the Hockey 400 Club. Next on the list we have Ray Ferraro. Ray Ferraro wore number 26 for Hartford, and he is responsible for being in 442 games for the Hartford Whalers. Ray Ferraro was an incredible offensive threat. It was a nice center to have, a nice second or third line center. He had a lot of incredible shots. I can remember one time in the XL Center when they were playing Quebec, and Ferraro actually shot the puck so hard that it wrapped around the net and went in and out of the netting. So, he actually put it through the back of the net. It was a huge shot. So, he had that kind of speed. But, the problem with him was that he was traded so early, actually. He was a pretty young player when he was traded. And, he never got a chance to spend more time in Hartford. He went on to play with the Islanders and went on to play with the Atlanta Thrashers. But he currently right now is an analyst for TSN. So you can see him. I remember one funny story about him was when you win the Stanley Cup, you can touch the cup, but if you've never won the Stanley Cup, the rule is you don't touch it, and that's one of those unwritten rules that the players go by. So if you haven't won the cup, you can't touch it. Well, Ray Ferraro never won the cup, and he was taking it so seriously that when they would bring the cup in the room, he would leave the room because he didn't want to be anywhere near it, so he was sticking to the rule. But, unfortunately, unless he gets a coaching job, he won't get a chance to touch that cup. But it's still a great player, and you can see him on TSN, and he's a pretty good analyst too. So definitely a good guy to have in the Hockey 400 Club. Next on the list, we have Andrew Castles. Andrew Castles played 438 games for the Hartford Whalers. Castles was acquired in a trade. The Canadians let him go, and he went on to have a pretty impressive career in not just in Hartford, but in his entire NHL career. Amassing over 700 points, playing in over 1,000 games. Finished up with the Washington Capitals. Andrew Castles was another two-way center who was a little bit undersized, but yet was enough to stay active and get inside the minds of players in the offensive zone. So he had a nice offensive touch. It was one of those guys that you could rely on to be there every night. Andrew Castles at 438 games is one of those guys that's in the Hartford Hockey 400 Club. Next on the list is Dean Evison. Dean is 434 games for the Whalers. He currently now he's coach of the Milwaukee Admirals in the AHL. Dean wore number 12, and he, like having all those games in Hartford, Dean was able to, be one of those players that you could mix it up anytime on the floor. There was a point where I think he even had the assistant captaincy. He is one of those players that it still comes back to Hartford. You'll still get in touch with him. Overall, nice guy. Dean Evison was one of those guys from the earlier 80s, but he was here for long enough to be involved in that, those good years in the 80s. So, another good guy, another good coach. As you can see, I can't even count how many coaches we have on this list. Just about all of them are into coaching or doing something within the NHL or the ECHL or the AHL. All very active in coaching. Pat Verbeek is the 12th guy on our Hartford Hockey 400 list. Verbeek played in 433 games. He is currently the assistant GM with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And believe it or not, you can see him in Hartford to this day. He comes up and catches some of the games with the Wolfpack and the Norfolk Admirals, which is his AHL affiliate to the Tampa Bay Lightning. You can see for Pat Verbeek walking around the halls, hitting out. Yep. The GM is actually the Steve Yzerman, who you'll see around the XL also. Steve Yzerman was wore number 19 and was with the Detroit Red Wings. He actually, has been in the XL a couple times. So it's kind of neat to see these guys. You can still catch them walking around the XL. Obviously, Ken Janander's still there as well. You have most of these guys you can still see around, and that's why they're in this specific club. There's only 12 of them. So there's not a whole lot, but there are a few that are honorable mentions. For instance, Sylvain Cote played 382 games for Hartford. Was a rugged defenseman, wore number 21, and was just about almost 18 games shy of making that 400 mark. Another one, Randy Ladouceur, played 377 games for Hartford. I don't know if you remember Randy Ladouceur. He probably the third or fourth guy of that mustache group. Big guy with a mustache. But anyway, he had the captaincy for a while. Was the captain along with Verbeek, Francis Deneen, and Ken Janander was a captain in Hartford hockey. So plenty of captains on this list as well. Randy Ladouceur currently is coaching as well, but I'm trying to remember exactly where he was coaching, but I'm not sure about that. But Randy is one of those guys, wore number 29, and was a defenseman that you could just always count on. He was probably the goalie's best friend throughout his career in Hartford. So at 377 games, he gets an honorable mention. Next on the list for honorable mentions, we have Paul McDermott, who you remember. Paul McDermott was one of those guys that laid out a check that somebody would feel the next morning. Paul McDermott played in 373 games for the Hartford Whalers. I think I remember the biggest goal I saw him score was against the Quebec series in the game 2. I think he scored the overtime goal to give Hartford a 2-games-to-none lead against Quebec. McDermott, you recently have seen him actually. He was at the Whale Bowl. He was an assistant coach for the matchup between the Whalers and the Bruins alumni, and his son was on the Bruins, Providence Bruins team, but he recently got traded to, I think it was Dallas. I forget his first name, but McDermott, his son, is on the Dallas roster if you check it out. And other than that, I think that Paul is one of those guys also that comes back to Hartford every now and then, like he did for the Whale Bowl, which was a great time. And we're hoping that the powers that be, that maybe there'll be another Whale Bowl in our future, but we don't know if that's for sure or not yet. But either that or a fan fest. Those two events were fantastic, and you got to meet some of these players. These guys were actually they would come. And they like to reminisce about the days that they were here in Hartford. Another guy we got on the list is Sylvain Turgeon. Sylvain Turgeon, you remember, was a big-time sniper. They were really counting on him to be their big scorer, and to some points he was. He had a really good season with Hartford, but overall he had some injury issues. I can remember in the All-Star game that was in Hartford, he took over for Ron Francis, who was out with a broken leg. Sylvain Turgeon played in 370 games as a Whaler, so he was just about 30 shy of that 400 mark. Now, unfortunately for Sylvain, he ended up being known as one of the best trades for Hartford. They traded Sylvain Turgeon to get Pat Verbeek. So Pat Verbeek, that was a really good trade for Hartford. It really worked out well because Pat Verbeek, had much more, output than Sylvain Turgeon, and Pat Verbeek was just as scrappy as Kevin Dineen was. So that's the trade that everyone remembers in Hartford as being one of their best. But when we're looking at this group here, I don't know if there'll be any more additions to this group. Another honorable mention that I forgot to mention was Todd Hall. Todd Hall was interesting because he was drafted by the Whalers in 1991, but ended up being on the Hartford Wolfpack as it became a Ranger property. He played well over 300 games for the Rangers AHL affiliate. I think he played 40 games for Binghamton, and then he played 299 games for the Hartford Wolfpack. And he was also from Hamden, Connecticut. So, here's a guy that, if you talk about Hartford hockey, he was drafted by the Whalers, played for the Wolfpack, and grew up in Hamden. That's as Hartford hockey as you get. So, we have to take a look at to see if anyone else will come up to reach these numbers. But I don't think that's going to happen. As you said, you got to play at least 5 seasons, and in the AHL, it just doesn't really happen. I don't know if you remember, Chris Newberry was a recent Hartford Wolfpack alumni. Now he's an alumni because he's been traded, but he played like 222 games for the Wolfpack and Wolfpack Whale, and he was just traded to Philadelphia. So he was here for quite a few seasons, but at the same time, it wasn't nearly half as long as some of these guys here, in this Hartford 400 club. It just doesn't happen in the AHL, and in the NHL, I think it's even becoming a little bit more rare as well. So those are things to consider. But the Hartford Hockey 400 Club is something that I think that somehow we should keep in our minds, because those are the guys, those core guys that have been here long times. Their points and their goals, they only matter so much. The longevity means a lot because they were involved in all those children's cancers societies and Yukon Health Center. They did a lot of things for the community, and that made them, part of this club, because they were, not just players on the ice, but they were also contributors in the community, which is something that Hartford desperately needs now. There's a lot of things going on in Hartford in terms of trying to rebuild and revamp the city. So you're hoping that eventually will lead to the possibility of maybe getting an NHL team in Hartford. And then maybe you can add some of these guys to the Hartford 400 Club. It's interesting to think about, though, how we're going to look at going into this season. As you know, the Whale is moving over. They're going to be the Wolfpack now. So there is no more Connecticut Whale. will Whaler fans show up to support the Wolfpack, even though it's not really related to the brand that they want. There are a lot of people that don't appreciate the Rangers. There's some people that feel that the Rangers are just here and not really trying to interest people into hockey. But the Rangers have been here 17 years, and they're here for 3 more. And then after that, they could be moving. It was just found out that the Nassau bid in Long Island, where it was between MSG and the Ratner Group. The Ratner Group won. So MSG was trying to win that bid. There was some concern that the Wolfpack would move to Nassau, but Ratner has claimed that the Bridgeport Sound Tigers will be moving to Nassau. I think it was 2016, 2017, somewhere around there. That being said, everyone's assuming that in 3 years the New York Rangers, their affiliate here, the Wolfpack, will move to Bridgeport. As Bridgeport is perfect for them. It's on the train line, it's on the Metro North line right there. They're only, so far from it, whereas Hartford was a little bit further. And, as much as you like to say it, Fairfield County is Ranger country. So they might even do better in attendance down there. As here, it's been tough for them to sell some season tickets sometimes, being there's a lot of Bruin fans and leftover Hartford Whaler fans who just can't get past going to see the Rangers. They don't, they never liked the Rangers, so they weren't going to see them. But it is possible in 3 years that Hartford could be looking for hockey. Maybe they'll be looking at another AHL affiliate. Maybe they'll actually bump up and look into the NHL. Those are a couple things that possibly could happen. But one thing's for sure: a 20-year stay in Hartford for the Rangers is pretty impressive for any AHL affiliate. But we're still 3 seasons away, so we have a lot more hockey in Hartford before we have to make any changes. It's good to get this Hartford Hockey 400 Club out there, and hopefully if there's a Whaler Fan Fest in our future, you may be able to sit down and meet some of these guys. It's been great to get this list down and get these guys recognized, because they really have contributed a lot to Hartford and into Hartford hockey even more. That's about all we have for right now. I'm going to sign off here. So. You can always, follow us on Hartford Whaler Nation if you'd like to learn more about what we do. It's good to check out what they have if you're interested. We're going to do one way. We're going to do this sign off here. We do what Jerry Irwin always does. It's one nation under green.